and this is something that I'm beginning to look into, and I may be very wrong, so I'm not, that the eye and the brain processes the chemical image differently than the electronic image. That somehow our physical receptors know the difference. I still think that the film image leads one more into a deeper psychological space than the digital image, even though the digital image can be quite fabulous. And I think over the next few months you will see that. I don't know. I saw many DCPs. I guess. Does anyone know if like the Regal Theater in Mumbai has DCP? Because I just came from Mumbai because I wanted to see Rockstar, and the projection was very, very good. And I think it's a digital projector because I didn't see any real change.
I don't know about radio particularly, this one, but in India mostly the standard is the last has got this 4K projection. 4K. But mostly the cinema theaters still have 2Ks, mostly 1 and 2Ks.
Yeah, no, well, when you get to 4K and DCP, it's quite astonishing. Although it doesn't, for me, still have the depth.
Sir, adding a little bit point to you were talking about the images. I have a perception, something like probably we have grown in an era where we saw optical image first, and then digital image happened to us. For us to compare the transition from this kind of image that, and probably the current generation who are grown on digital image from day one, probably for them maybe the digital image would be the right image, and they might probably find cellulite to be something different. Would you think that could be the psychological effect that we see the difference?
It could be. It could be. But it's most young people today, their first moving images are probably not in the movie theater anymore, but on their phones or on the internet. So it's a totally different experience that I can't judge because that their mind might perceive a difference as well, but they might perceive the chemical images inferior. I don't know.
Mr. Kardish, literature. Speaking about the film literature, since you are the curator of a museum where literature is also important and you have written certain books, yes. How important is the film literature in modern era? With the advance of internet, the literature is getting pushed a little back.
You mean film?
The literature in terms of books, posters.
No, you mean you're not talking about film criticism.
No, not criticism. The informative books on films or magazines or posters which people used to collect in the olden times.
Writing on cinema. Well, writing on cinema has changed dramatically. In France, most of the major newspapers have stopped serious film criticism. And now they're doing just kind of blogs and blurbs. And I know the film critics, at least in the States, are very sad because they're losing their jobs in favor of people who are just giving opinions rather than doing analysis or histories or providing a context.
In India, we never really did have much serious film criticism. There was, but it was very, very small point. So already it is not even a transition. They really epic this without having gone through this earlier stage. So we can't call it decadent. Because decadence, at least there is a rise and there is a decadence. A very handful of small pockets in which serious film criticism was there, and mostly outside the mainstream magazines. That is where you found. But even that now is very hard to sort of generate and sort of.
But I knew a very good film critic years ago, Chita Dasgupta.
Yes.
Yes, because when we did our Sachi retrospective, he came and he was very, very eloquent.
There'll be a session maybe.
Right. The other thing, though, about literature in a way, is that it used to be we're not talking about filmmakers now, but we're talking about painters and sculptors and people who do drawings. in their works, in their paintings and sculptures, they would refer to books. And the references would be literary. Now, it's very interesting that so many artists who are doing paintings refer to scenes in movies. It's like film has become the new literature. So they won't refer to Charles Dickens, but they'll refer to scenes in, say, Aliens, or a Fassbinder film. And Fassbinder has given the world of painters and sculptors interesting characters from which they would make their own work.
I would like, I have just one personal request, because you've spoken variously about your various aspects, but to give us a comprehensive idea of your work that you're involved, would you talk us through briefly through something which was very interesting, challenging for you? You've done several projects, I'm sure. So any one which you would like to share the details from conception to the end, so we'll get, I think, a much rounded idea about the kind of work that you are doing.
Okay, let me just talk about a show that I'm very proud of called Daydreams and Nightmares. I've always been fascinated by German cinema between World War I and World War II. Not only because there were some wonderful films made by people like Murnau and Fritz Lang, but because it deeply, deeply influenced American cinema, not only because Hollywood looked to Germany, actually, in the 20s, but because Hollywood inherited many German filmmakers that went on to distinguish Hollywood. The earliest one, say, is Ernst Lubitsch. Lubitsch was making films in Germany from about 1917. I mean, he started making films during the First World War. And he was brought to America by Mary Pickford in like 1923. Yeah, and he came to make silent films, and he stayed on to help develop the studio system. But there's just, the great film studio was UFA, which was just outside of Berlin in Potsdam, which was the largest film studio in the world, where they made great works. But also, there was in Germany at the period, not only the highly artificial studios, but they were also shooting outside as well. And of course, in Germany at the time, it was a time of great social ferment. So no one kind of knew what was going to happen. And there was a very strong influence from Moscow in Germany as well. So what I did is I contacted a colleague who was the president of FIAF. Now, FIAF is the International Federation of Film Archives, which was established, I think, in 1936 in New York. And it was the archives that where the original founders were MoMA, the British Film Institute, the Cinémathèque Française, and the Reichsfilm Archive in Germany, which was already a Nazi institution. But now it's grown to have, they have several hundred members. And there was a woman that I worked with in Germany. Her name was Eva Orban, still is, who was the head of FIAF. And I asked for her help in finding out what German films were still available in the German archives. I knew what was available in the States. And in the States, we not only have MoMA, but there's also the Library of Congress, which is a very good archive. There's George Eastman House in Rochester, and George Eastman was the founder of Kodak, of course. And there's UCLA, that has a very good archive in Los Angeles. And there's also a good archive in Harvard. So I knew what we had, and I went to Berlin. She collected some DVDs for me to see, and I was able to make some choices. And then I had to negotiate with the rights holders And the rights holders now is an organization called the Murnau Foundation, because after the Second World War, the rights to all the films that were made between the wars, I mean, the Nazis claimed the rights to all these films, and the war was lost, and so the German government created another organization that had the rights. So I was able to negotiate with these people and with this organization, and I was able to borrow films from the major German archives, the major American archives, including ours, and put together an exhibition of about 80 films made between the years 1919 and 1933, and also to publish a catalog. Another exhibition that I was proud of is that I think that there are many installation artists. These are artists who are not using the cinema, but gallery spaces to do their work. And I found this artist, Arnold Nick, who was at the biennial in Istanbul about 6 years ago, and I was able to convince him to let me show some of his work in various spaces around the museum, public spaces like hallways and galleries. And I was very happy to do that because I wanted to say, film is not a dead medium. Moving images live in many different formats.
Yes, I think it's been an hour is past since we talking. It's a long time talking, and I think he's taking us through this process. I'm sure that he would have a lot more to share with us in terms of technicalities and given his kind of experience. But technicalities as time is that very limited, so the sessions have to come to some end. But I think it's been a very, very enriching session. And I say this not only for myself, but on behalf of everyone. And I think we've taken a lot of ideas and a lot of interesting thoughts will stay with us, particularly on some of the thoughts on which we've not found answers, some of the areas of the frontier. But I think it's good to keep thinking about them. Someday we'll have solutions, someday we'll have clarified, our perspectives and things like that. And inputs like this, what we will see from our guests today, I think will be very, very valuable and would stay with us. And thank you very much for your time, for your expertise and sharing, willingness to share it with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hand, please.